All right, thanks for the introduction. That was quite a mouthful. I'll have to trim that back, and good morning all. So I've got a fairly short little presentation slot, but a couple of observations from me. I might be stating the obvious, but we need more metals. I think increasingly those metals need to be clean and green, particularly because of stakeholders and regulators. To the extent that you can produce clean and green, you should be looking down the barrel of potential pricing premiums. And to that end, I'll tell you a little bit about Neometals and how we're supporting this cause. So look, backdrop, a helicopter view. We are an emerging, sustainable battery materials producer. I say producer because we're generating both cobalt and nickel out of our German recycling operations. We're headquartered here in Perth, 40 people, ASX and AIM listed. And essentially we've developed a suite of mineral processing technologies. 3 in particular I'll emphasise today, but those 3 technologies underpin 3 core business units. Those business units are looking to source feedstocks from people who have already dug them out of the ground, so we're not exposed to mining risk. And what we're doing with those feedstocks is processing them through recycling, materials recovery and downstream processing, with a view to generating really, really clean and green battery metals. So levers to success, we believe we've got many, but there's 3 in particular I'll highlight here. So if I've done a good job, you'll remember these 3 things. Neometals has got many shots on goal in terms of exposure to the energy transition. If you look to the right there, there's a little graph that shows you the 6 most exposed minerals to the energy transition, of which we're exposed to 5, and actually 4 of them just come out of recycling alone. So number 2, business model flexibility, and that's important because I believe that allows us to have meaningful dialogues with OEMs, many of whom haven't actually landed on their strategy yet. So we're looking to partner where possible and get others to shoulder some of the burden and co-fund. And 3, these projects backed by technologies spawn more and more projects from those technologies. So there's a huge growth profile and they're all linked to ESG megatrends. Bit of a snapshot where we are globally. You can see projects in North America and Europe. That's no accident for the fact that those jurisdictions are respectively 2 and 3 globally for battery production, so we're targeting those areas. And this just shows you the 3 core business units that I mentioned. So I'll talk more about battery recycling in the next few minutes. But there's a commonality here. They're all in joint ventures. They've all got partners co-funding and putting their shoulder to the wheel. If you move to the right with vanadium recovery, that's all about a technology we've developed to pull really high purity vanadium out of steel byproduct coming out of Scandinavia initially, our first project. And then to the right again, lithium chemicals, that's underpinned by a tech that we've developed where we're using lithium chloride as a feedstock and passing electricity through it with electrolysis to separate the lithium and the chlorine. So we're looking to develop that initially in Portugal with Portugal's biggest chemical company. Zoning in on the battery recycling, look, this hasn't been an overnight success for us. It's 6 years in the making. We developed a flow sheet for consumer electronics. We scratched that once we saw what EVs were doing. We piloted in Canada. We drew the attention of a big German company called SMS, and we've subsequently formed a 50-50 JV with SMS, and we call it Promobius. So why SMS? The timing was right to bring on a big partner that had the capability to build plants and to guarantee them, something not all our competitors have. They're highly reputable, 140 years old, 15-odd thousand staff, around about 100 sites. And they're very capable. The images show you what they built with our assistance from Australia in Germany during COVID. On the left-hand side, you're seeing the shredding and comminution circuit of what is our spoke. That's a small commercial operation. On the right-hand side is the refinery hub. That's all about pulling out the really valuable metals as salts, so that's still a demo scale. So what we're trying to do is become a leading provider on recycling to OEMs. This is not a cottage opportunity. This is really about scale. So that's how we've designed our plant and our flow sheet initially to target, if you look to the left, at that graph. The blue bars around about today represent scrap from production. That's where most of the feedstock would come from. At least that's what the analysts say, but we're finding with our facility in Germany, we're getting a lot of modules that are coming out of car crashes and warranty returns. And really what we're doing is gearing up to be prepared for those green bars, and the green bars represent end of life, and that's where the serious volumes come. What we're actually doing, it's a patent pending hydromet process, so 2 stages to it. The first stage, we're agnostic. It doesn't matter the format of the cells that we get. NMC, LCO, if they're big enough in modules, we'll dismantle and discharge, and then we'll smash them up in a shredding circuit and a comminution circuit. We pull out plastic, steel casings, the foils, and they go to a second home. That black mass intermediate is very valuable, and the intention is to send that through to our refining hub. What we're doing there is sequentially pulling out those valuable metals as salts and looking to sell them back to precursor manufacturers, so we get a second generation of batteries that are far greener than the first gen. It's not a winner-takes-all proposition. There are others doing same but different. The reality is what we have is a timing opportunity, particularly in Europe. So there's a couple of challenges that Neometals is looking to support the industry with, one of which relates to regulation. So if you're an OEM, regulation is forcing your hand, and there was mention earlier about the EU Critical Raw Materials Act. Another one of big consequence for our industry is the EU battery regulations, and the sort of things that are demanded from that are, having CO2 footprints on your products if you're in the battery value chain. You've got to have minimum recycling rates. You must have recycled content in your new batteries. And so it goes, and likewise there's a stick for us as well. We need minimum recovery rates. We've devised or designed our flow sheet to meet those, and we're very, very close. Lithium's there, the others are upon us, so we're doing well at this stage. Second challenge is resilience of supply chains, and this is something facing everyone. If you move from left to right, first graph there shows you forecast battery material supply deficits. That example's lithium, but across the board you're going to be facing similar situations. The middle one just says more content is required from recycling, and you can see that graph showing you year on year more and more as a percentage of material must be recycled going into the batteries. And lastly, the supply imbalance in future, come 2040, a lot of that demand will be met from recycling. It's not so much the case now, we complement, but in future it's going to be a big deal. And the last one, which is a biggie, is if you're an EV manufacturer, regrettably when your car comes off the showroom floor, it's going to have a much bigger CO2 footprint than my Interceptor. And the reason being is those materials have been mined and transported around the world. The best way to address it is to recycle. So your second generation of batteries has materials that didn't require the mining and transport, and thereby you reduce the CO2 footprint. And the image on the right just shows you in the baby blue, that's us with hydrometallurgy, far smaller CO2 footprint. So I did mention, or at least it was on the slide up the front, those 3 things that I wanted to emphasise. Flexible business models here. We are happy to act as principal. We're doing so in Hilschenbach, where you saw the pictures. We're happy to partner where we share the economics, and therefore we get the feedstock and we return the chemicals, importantly, back to our OEM partners. And if the opportunity is big enough, we're happy to license. So this is a key distinction of how we're different to the peer group. Some of the peers are raising a lot of money, committing to building plants, and then they must find the feedstock and scratch around to get it. We don't want to do that. What we want to do is find the feedstock with our partners first, then make investment decisions on big plants, and that's exactly what we're doing. This image shows you how. Top left in green, that's our Hilschenbach operation. We're selling black mass day in, day out. It's a small operation. We're intending to get bigger through supplying a plant to Mercedes. That'll be done in 2 stages, so that'll be 10 tonne a day. Our studies are on 20,000 tonne per annum. This is about 5,000 tonne per annum, but it's integrated, both spoke and hub. Then we do the same for Stelco in Canada, 5 times bigger again, and we have an aspiration in Germany where we've done our studies in a place called Kaiserslautern. So scale is the key here to benefit from economies of scale. A little taster on Merck. They are a customer. We are providing engineering services. Touch wood, they're soon to sign a supply contract for the plant that they're going to build in that shed that you can see in the image. Top left are our crew from Primobius at the ground turning event, and on the right, really, I'm just trying to show you here that Mercedes, which is not the biggest car manufacturer, come 2030, has got a huge commitment to recycle. So they would need globally plants double the size of what we are evaluating, and they'd need about 50 of them. So it's a big opportunity. We've got an early mover advantage, really environmentally friendly solution. Flexible business models, I mentioned again, partnerships are how we like to go about doing this, and the economics are really attractive. So I'll leave this slide, but those three things again. The technologies are supporting multiple different projects, so there's a big growth opportunity, unlike a mine where you need resource extension or you acquire your neighbour, and all the projects are ESG leveraged. Exposure to the energy transition is really significant. Lots of minerals across all the projects, and I've only spoken about recycling. And we've got a clear strategy, RE, these flexible models. So that should leave me a little bit over 10 minutes.